In this video, we will continue with our discussion on solving systems of nonlinear algebraic equations using the Newton method, which depends on the Taylor series expansion up to the linear term. In this video, we will take a look at n nonlinear equations in n unknowns. The problem to solve is given very simply like this: f of x is equal to 0. But in contrast to what we learned earlier, now you're going to have f as a vector. That means there are going to be many f's: f1, f2, f3, f4, f5, fn, as illustrated here. There are n functions: f1, f2, f3, fn. And the unknowns are represented by this vector x underscore. X underscore means it is a vector that contains the unknowns x1, x2, x3, x4, xn. And the right hand side is the zero vector, right? A vector of n zeros, 0, 0, 0, like that. There will be total of n zeros here. So that is what this abstract expression tells us. In expanded form, it is like this. So you have the n functions in n unknowns, and we are supposed to find out the values of x1, x2, xn such that the right hand sides are all 0. So for example, F1 can come from the mass balance for species 1, F2 can come from the mass balance of species 2, F3 can come from the energy balance of the reactor contents, F4 can come from the energy balance of the jacket that surrounds the reactor and either brings in heat or removes heat from the reactor. So the origin of F1, F2, F3, F4 in this particular example are from a physical system in which something that is important for a chemical engineer happens. So without going straight away into problems involving 4 equations and 4 unknowns or 40 equations and 40 unknowns, we will just do the development based on n is equal to 2. So we're going to consider a system of 2 equations in 2 unknowns. This helps us to look at multivariable systems because with 2 unknowns, you get into the multivariable world, right? And you also keep things simple. But the ideas all scale up so beautifully even to a system of 10,000 equations and 10,000 unknowns. Okay, that's the nice thing about the Newton method. So let us get to understand about the Newton method for solving multivariable nonlinear algebraic equations by looking at the simple example of 2 functions in 2 unknowns. Now, in close parallel with what we learned for one nonlinear algebraic equation and one unknown, we are going to say here that for the unknowns x1 and x2, we have the guess values. Current guess values are x1 0 and x2 0 respectively. For x1, the guess is x1 0. For x2, the guess or the current value of x is x2 0. Now, if I substitute for x1 and x2 in these two expressions, right? For x1 I substitute x1 0 and for x2 I substitute x2 0. If the right hand sides both turn out to be 0 or a small value which is very close to 0, then I have reached the solution. So the problem stops there. I can just report the solution as x1 is equal to x1 0 and x2 is equal to x2 0. But unfortunately, we are not that lucky. And therefore, what we need to do is we are trying to improve our guess values. So I'm trying to improve my current guess of x1 0 by adding a correction delta x1 to it. I do not know what delta x1 is, but I would like to find that out. A good correction for x1. So the new x1 value will be x1 0 plus delta x1 once I found out delta x1. Likewise, for x2 0, I'm going to find a correction delta x2 so that the new x2 will become x2 0 plus delta x2. So I'm trying to seek these two symbols, delta x1 and delta x2. And what have I learned so far? I know to solve systems of linear equations through decomposition method or iterative method or direct methods. So I'm going to set up a problem like we did for a single nonlinear algebraic equation. I'm going to set up a problem where things become linear in delta x1 and delta x2. Of course, the corrections will not be perfect. That means I would not reach the answer after one correction because the system is nonlinear and I'm using a linear approximation to guess the better answer to the problem. Therefore, to take care of that inefficiency, I have to iterate it multiple times in order to reach the answer to the problem. So let's get along with it. Now, if you look at function 1, the value of the function at x10 plus delta x1 and x20 plus delta x2. So the function, right, f1 is a function of x1 and x2. So the new x1 is x10 plus delta x1. The new x2 is x20 plus delta x2. So what I'm doing on the right hand side is the Taylor series expansion of this multivariable function. So the value of f1 at x10 plus delta x1, comma x20 plus delta x2 is going to be the value of the function at the current known point. So I know the value of the function at x1 naught and x2 naught because I have those values, x1 naught and x2 naught. I can put it in the expression for the function and I can find this number, right? So it is going to be that plus the partial derivative of f1 with x1. That partial derivative is going to be evaluated at x10, x20. So this is a partial derivative of the function 1 with respect to x1. It will be in general a function of x1 and x2. So wherever in this partial derivative I see x1, after I've evaluated the partial derivative, wherever I see x1, I'll put x10. Wherever I see x2, I'll put x20. So this will evaluate to a number. All right. This multiplied by delta x1. Okay, so please note this is a small perturbation of x1 and we are trying to see what is its effect on f1. So this is the sensitivity of f1 to x1. That sensitivity I'm going to multiply with the amount of change that I'm trying to find out. So if you look at dimensions or units, this is dou f1 by dou x1 multiplied by something related to x1. So the units of this whole thing will be in terms of f1, which is what is here and which is what is here. So the sensitivity of the function f1 with respect to the variable x1 is given by this partial derivative. So if I change x1 very slightly, f1 will change by this amount. That is what this function tells us. So then I will multiply it by the actual amount that I'm moving, right? Which is delta x1. So that will give me the change in the value of the function as a result of changing x1 by delta x1. A similar idea holds for x2. So I'm trying to see here with this expression here, what is the change in f1 for a very, very small change in x2. So that is given by the sensitivity here. So that sensitivity or gain is multiplied by the actual change I'm going to make in x2. This term that I'm circling is going to give us the change I expect in the value of f1 because of the change delta x2 I'm going to make in my x2 value. Then we have plus higher order terms. I'm just going to recognize that, but I'm going to ignore that, right? Because I want the problem to be linear. I do not want to include these terms in order to make this strict equality because I'm interested in approximation and multiple iterations to solve the problem. I don't want to solve it in one shot. If I want to solve it in one shot, then I have to include these higher order terms, and with the inclusion of quadratic, cubic and all these terms that come on the right hand side, the problem is going to be non-linear. I'm trying to avoid the solution of a non-linear problem by solving the nonlinear problem as a series of linear problems. So I recognize that with the inclusion of higher order terms, this will be strict equality. But if I ignore this higher order terms for easiness of solution, then this is going to become a approximately equal to, because I'm going to truncate after this term. Okay, so that's the idea. Again, if you do the similar thing for f2, what's the value of the function f2 at x1 naught plus delta x1, x2 naught plus delta x2? I'm going to get a similar expression now, but everything will involve f2, right? As opposed to f1, which we did for function 1. That's very understandable. So whatever we discussed and did at the top for f1, we do the same thing for f2 here. Again, there are higher order terms in order to keep this a strict equality, but we are going to ignore the higher order terms to keep the problem linear. Thus, once we ignore the higher order terms, we are going to get this to be roughly equal to. But just for because we're going to pretend that the solution is going to be reached, I've just left it as equal to, but this actually should be approximately equal to. What you see here is nothing but what was written in the previous slide, except that we have dropped the higher order terms. Now, at this point, the reason, right, why we still think it is equal to, even though it should be approximately equal to, it is because we are going to believe that with these corrections, right, of delta x1 and delta x2 made on x1 naught and x2 naught, we are going to reach the solution or the root of the problem. That means this function evaluated at this new point, we believe it is going to be 0. Again, f2 evaluated at the new point with the corrections made to x1 naught and x2 naught, we believe it will take us to 0. Whether it happens or not, we do not know, but we believe, right? That's the way to move forward in the solution of the problem. Therefore, we are going to equate these functions f1 and f2 to 0. So these expressions reduce to what you see here. Exactly everything is the same, except that we have replaced f1 at the new point and f2 at the new point with zeros, right? For each of those equations. So in vector matrix form, I can pack this whole two equations that you see there as zero vector, because this is 0 and 0 stacked, right? So this is the zero vector equals, right, the equal to sign. Now I'm going to look at these two terms. So f1 and f2 evaluated at x1 naught, x2 naught. So because you see f1 is evaluated at x1 naught, x2 naught, f2 is evaluated at x1 naught, x2 naught. Therefore, I'm saying this is nothing but f1 and f2 stacked in this particular way, but both the functions are evaluated at x1 naught and x2 naught. Plus, now you come to these first order partial derivatives. So I can pack it like this. For the first equation, it is going to be dou f1 by dou x1 times delta x1 plus dou f1 by dou x2 times delta x2. All right, so I hope this makes sense. And then for the second equation, it is going to be dou f2 by dou x1 times delta x1 plus dou f2 by dou x2 times delta x2, right? Preserving these two equations properly. And these partial derivatives, every time it is evaluated at x1 naught and x2 naught, the current values of x1 and x2 that we have. Therefore, I'm saying this matrix, that matrix is going to be evaluated. The elements of those matrix are going to be evaluated at x1 naught, x2 naught. So what happens is, in a very nice form, I can write the left-hand side as 0 vector is equal to, this is going to be the function vector evaluated at my current guess values, which are x1 naught and x2 naught. So this f underscore means it's going to be a vector. Here it's going to be, in our illustration, it's going to be a vector of two functions, and the functions are evaluated at my current values of x1 and x2, which are nothing but x1 naught and x2 naught. And then this plus sign, and this matrix has a special name, right? Whenever we have a matrix of first order partial derivatives, we call it the Jacobian matrix, and the symbol is J. And I put a double underscore here for J to indicate that J is going to be a matrix. So this is what is called the Jacobian. The first row contains the first order derivatives of F1. The second row contains the first order partial derivatives of F2. And if you have n equations in n unknowns, the first row will be partial derivatives of F1 with respect to x1, x2, x3, x4, xn. The second row of the Jacobian will have the partial derivatives of F2 with respect to x1, x2, x3, xn. The last row, the nth row of the Jacobian, will be the partial derivatives of Fn with respect to x1, x2, x3, xn. So this Jacobian matrix will be a n by n matrix. Here it is a 2 by 2 matrix, but in general it will be a n by n matrix. So if you look at it, you have this n by 1, which is the 0 vector, will have size n by 1. Here n is equal to 2. So here the 0 vector is of size 2 by 1. So it's a column vector with two elements. F1, F2, right? So here this F function will be n by 1. So the 0 vector is n by 1. This F function will be n by 1. And this J naught is n by n. And delta x is going to be n by 1, because we are going to look at corrections for all the unknown x values. So in this case, delta x contains delta x1, delta x2, because n is equal to 2. In a general problem, delta x will be a n element vector, right? Delta x1, delta x2, delta x3, all the way till delta xn. So I hope this equation makes sense. This is very similar to 0 is equal to f naught plus f dash at x naught times delta x that we did for the single variable case. So everything here is the same except that they become vectors, right? And now we are going to have multiple partial derivatives. We are not just going to have the derivative, but because f1, f2, you have multiple functions, and each function is a function of x1, x2, xn, etc. So this simple derivative in the univariate case now becomes a matrix of first order derivatives, which is called the Jacobian. So kindly see the connection between the multivariable case and the single variable case. Now, this is the equation we wrote in the previous slide. The point is, this is known, right? Because we know x1 naught, x2 naught. We have a current value, a guess value, or the current value, whichever stage you are in. You're having some guess values for x1, x2, xn, etc. Therefore, this function can be evaluated. So this is known. Again, we know the functions. We know what the partial derivatives of those functions are. And therefore, we can evaluate this Jacobian matrix. Every element of the Jacobian matrix can be evaluated at the current values of x1, x2, x3, xn. So in this particular case, we are just considering x1 and x2. Therefore, this matrix, 2 by 2 matrix of the first order partial derivatives of f1 and f2 can be evaluated at the current guess values, which is x1 naught and x2 naught. So this matrix is a known matrix. The only unknown here is delta x. Therefore, it is easy to find out the unknown vector. Look, this is a linear problem. I can arrange this as j naught delta x is equal to f naught with a negative sign, right? I'm taking this f naught to that side, so this is what it is. This is very similar to the problems that we have been learning in the past. Ax is equal to b. So this A is a coefficient matrix. Here it's the Jacobian matrix evaluated at the current guess values of x1, x2, x3, etc. B is the right hand side vector. Now B is nothing but minus f naught, the function vector evaluated at the current values of x1, x2, etc. Right? So the unknown there was x. Here the unknown in this particular formulation, the Newton formulation, is the correction vector delta x. So that is why matrix operations, solution of linear equations are very important, because in the solution of nonlinear algebraic equations, as we are seeing here, because of the strategy that we employed to solve the problem, we have to solve a linear problem at every iteration. That's the idea. So once you write it in this form, previously we wrote x is equal to A inverse B, right? Likewise, you can write for our formulation now, which is this, for this problem, right? Putting it in this form first, keeping the unknown on one side, delta x, is going to be pre-multiplying both sides by j naught inverse. I'm going to get this expression. Kindly note in your notes, I may have missed this negative sign. Sorry for my error. Please make that correction. So delta x is going to be equal to minus j naught inverse f naught. So we get the corrections for this iteration. Please note this would work only when the Jacobian is invertible. This matrix is invertible. All right. If the matrix is not invertible, then we are into some trouble. So we have to start with different initial guess, etc. All of this rests on the assumption that the Jacobian matrix is invertible as we go from iteration to iteration. Most of the time, there is no problem. Please look at this. When we did it for univariate systems, right, one nonlinear equation and one unknown, delta x came out to be equal to minus fx naught divided by f dash x naught. Okay, I hope you remember this expression. So you see the minus sign that's there. You see the function that's there. Now, there we had only one derivative, df by dx. That was the only derivative because f was a function of only one variable, x, right? And therefore you had f dash x naught in the denominator there. All right. Now, if the derivative at x naught becomes 0, then this would be a infeasible kind of a calculation because division by 0 is not allowed. So even in the single variable case, if the derivative of the function becomes 0 at x naught at your current guess value, then the delta x will become infinity and the problem will blow up and stop. So basically, Newton method assumes that the derivative of the function at the current x value does not go to 0. Likewise, if you're looking at multivariable systems, this Jacobian matrix should not be singular at any point during the iteration process. So here it is divided by fx naught in the univariate case, right? So I can write this as delta x is equal to, if you permit, minus sign, then f dash x naught 1 by, so I put a minus 1 there, f of x naught. So the same expression, instead of saying 1 by f dash x naught, I'm writing it as f dash x naught inverse. So that is like 1 by f dash x naught. So instead of this, now in the multivariable case, we have the Jacobian inverse. What is a Jacobian? Jacobian is a matrix of first order partial derivatives. So there is a beautiful analogy between the single variable case and the multivariable case. So I hope this equation is something we understand. So what we should keep in mind is the delta x, the correction vector, is going to be equal to the negative of the Jacobian inverse multiplied by the function with the Jacobian and the function evaluated at the current values of x. All right, so that is the thing that we remember. If you remember the multivariable case, then you can easily remember the univariate case, because the Jacobian for the univariate case or a one variable case becomes 1 by f dash. So then we can recover this expression. All right, so we know the correction vector. Now we recognize that if the correction vector is very small, let's say of the order of 10 power minus 8 or 10 power minus 12, then we say, well, these are very small adjustments to the x values, and therefore we can just declare that we have reached the root. And we will just say, well, x1, the correct value, the root, the solution to the problem is x1 is equal to x1 naught plus delta x1, x2 value is x2 naught plus delta x2, and then that would be the answer, right? Because if delta x is very, very small, we don't see the need for further iterations. The current, after you have made the current correction, then you can say that's it, and you can declare the answer. If this delta x is not small, if it is significant, right? The way you declare significance to be 10 to the power of minus 8, anything more than 10 power minus 8 can be significant, or for some other problem, anything more than 10 to the power of minus 12 can be significant. So you decide what is the significance level. So if delta x is large, value higher than your tolerance, then what you do is you will say that the new guess value is going to be the previous guess value plus the correction you have calculated. The new value for x2, which is new x2 naught, is going to be the old x2 naught plus the correction that you have calculated. And now you continue your iterations with these new values of x1 and x2 until you reach this condition or you reach the maximum number of iterations that you have set. So it all depends on how you write your code, right? What are the things you're going to check for convergence? When will you give up and say, well, I think I started with a wrong initial guess, or there is some error in my coding or in my declaration of the function or something, right? So you have to do troubleshooting. So you don't want it to keep iterating endlessly. So when you write your code, you have to pay attention to all these things, particularly when you're using these codes in the industry. This stops our discussion on the multivariable Newton method for solving systems of nonlinear algebraic equations. I'll catch up with you with some examples to follow. Bye for now.